Hello, I'm Estelle, Head of Social Housing at Spire Solicitors. This is the first in a number of short talks I intend to give on shared ownership. Shared ownership is one of many affordable home ownership schemes in the market today. Others include Help to Buy equity loans and discount market housing. Shared ownership in some ways feels new, perhaps because of the recent marketing campaigns by people such as the National Housing Federation. But actually it's been around in one form or another since the 1970s, so it is an established form of home ownership. The basic premise of shared ownership is that a buyer, and the buyer should be someone who can't otherwise afford to buy a home on the open market, but buys a share in a property. The initial share is generally between 25% and 75%. The rest of the home is owned usually, but not always, by a housing association. The buyer pays a rent to the housing association on its share. The rent could be said to be subsidised, it's not a market rent. The rent is set at a percentage of the housing association's share. It's usually set at around 2.75%. The rent is subject to annual increase, but this is RPI linked and capped. The division in ownership between the buyer and the housing association is legally structured using a shared ownership lease. This means that shared ownership does share some of the same issues and pitfalls as other residential leasehold property. Some lawyers would prefer to see a trust-based system instead of a lease, but for now, shared ownership leases are the established practice. Over time, buyers can acquire additional shares in their home, and this is known as staircasing. In most cases, the buyer can ultimately acquire 100%, and this is known as final staircasing. At the point of final staircasing, with a house, the buyer will usually acquire the freehold for no additional cost. With a flat, the lease will continue, but the shared ownership specific provisions and restrictions will fall away. In some cases, most notably in rural areas and with older persons' shared ownership, staircasing is capped at 80% and 75% respectively. The reasoning here is to ensure that the homes remain affordable and don't get lost to the open market. So that's a basic introduction to shared ownership. In future talks, I will look at the model lease and the capital funding guide, the difference between shared equity and shared ownership, some of the specialist shared ownership products, and proposals for shared ownership reform.